Police emergency, what's your location?
Good morning, Brookfield.
And what's happening there?
My wife isn't home. I don't know where she is.
What's your name, first of all?
I'm sorry. Jared.
And your last name, Jared?
Baden-Clay.
And what's your wife's name?
Allison with 2 L's. I don't want to be alarmist. I tried the 131 number, but just went on forever.
Yep. All right, Jared. I'll get police to come and see you, okay? All right. Thanks, Jared. Bye-bye.
In the early morning hours on Friday, April 20th, 2012, police in Brisbane, Australia, received a call from a man by the name of Gerard Baden-Clay, reporting that his wife, 43-year-old Allison, had suddenly gone missing. Police officers were dispatched to the house, and as soon as they arrived, they immediately recognized who he was. The Baden-Clays were a prominent family who were well known in Australia and were loved by their community. Gerard Baden-Clay came from a distinct bloodline. His great-grandfather was Lord Robert Baden-Powell, a lieutenant general in the British Army who fought 4 wars and was hailed as a hero upon his return home. After retiring from the armed forces, Lord Robert wrote several books about military reconnaissance and scout training, and founded the Scout movement, which later became the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. There are 5 streets in Australia, as well as a hotel and a scouting park that all bear his name. Gerard was born in England and traveled the world with his family until they migrated to Australia when he was 10 years old. He had a privileged life growing up and carried his great-grandfather's name with pride. After graduating with a business degree, Gerard worked as an accountant for a few years before landing a job at a travel agency called Flight Centre, where he met his wife, Allison Dickey. Allison was an accomplished person herself. She spoke 6 languages, graduated with a degree in Japanese and psychology, and was crowned Miss Brisbane in 1993. After graduating college, Allison traveled the world and taught English classes in different countries. Gerard and Allison married in 1997 and traveled the world together before settling down in Brisbane to start a family. They rented a house in Brookfield, a middle-class suburb in Queensland, Australia, where they had 3 daughters together. Allison excelled at her job and went on to become an executive at Flight Centre, while Gerard ran a successful real estate franchise and became president of the Chamber of Commerce. By all accounts, the prominent couple were happy and successful and had raised a family that many strive to have. Gerard tells police that he woke up early that morning to find that his wife had left the house. It wasn't out of the ordinary for her to go out for a walk in the morning, but she'd always make it home in time to make breakfast for her daughters and get them ready for school. When Allison didn't make it back home in time, Gerard says that he felt something was wrong and decided to report her missing. Police wasted no time and quickly assembled a task force. They commandeered a clubhouse located just a few hundred yards from the Baden-Clay's home and used it as a command post to coordinate the massive search effort they were about to initiate. They rallied the community into action and set up volunteer search teams to comb through local streets and parks, while detectives interviewed dozens of people. But after several days of tedious searching, there was no sign of Allison, and her family was starting to worry. The case quickly picked up media attention, and Allison's parents jumped at the opportunity to attend a press conference and made an emotional appeal for their daughter's return.
Please, please help us to find our dear Allison. Our lives will never be the same. We must find her.
It's been over a week since Allison Baden-Clay had gone missing, and by now, her case had reached a national audience. As her distraught parents continue to work tirelessly with the media to get the word out, news reporters start to notice something peculiar. Allison's husband Gerard was not only missing from all the press conferences, but it seemed like he was going out of his way to avoid the media. He wouldn't talk to reporters who were posted outside of his house, and would try to sneak out in different cars and have different people come and pick him up. And while hundreds of volunteers and police officers were out searching for Allison, Gerard was noticeably absent. Not once had anyone seen him at any of the searches, not something one would expect from a worried husband. With more and more reporters showing up at his house to try and get a statement from him, Gerard eventually left his house altogether and took his daughters to stay at his parents' house, where reporters eventually tracked him down. When he spotted a news crew at the end of the driveway, he walked over to them alongside his sister and spoke to the media for the first time since his wife had disappeared.
I'm trying to look after my children at the moment. They've got 3 young girls, and we really trust that the police are doing everything they can to find my wife, and we just hope that she'll come home soon. And I need to go now to an appointment.
After this brief interaction, the news crew immediately felt that something wasn't right. Gerard looked like he was avoiding eye contact, and his demeanor seemed to be a little performative, and at no point did he turn to look at the camera, perhaps because he didn't want the large scratches on his cheek to be featured on the evening news, something which police had asked him about on the same day he reported Allison missing.
I should clarify here, I cut myself shaving this morning, and everybody has said that looks suspicious. It does. And that's part of the reason I think that you're here.
It doesn't look like a shaving cut.
Police also found other visible injuries on his body the day Allison went missing. Gerard told them that the abrasions on his chest were a reaction to a caterpillar bite from days earlier. It would later be reported that there are no caterpillars native to the area that could cause such a reaction. Detectives asked Gerard to take a medical exam and to have his DNA collected. They scheduled for him to come in 2 days later, but he ended up missing his appointment after getting into a minor car accident on his way there. Gerard was starting to look suspicious, but there wasn't enough evidence to arrest him. Police continued their ground search for Allison and focused all of their resources on it. They had people going door to door asking landowners to search their own properties, and even set up a mannequin dressed in the same outfit that Allison had on so that search teams could quickly identify her. But just 10 days after her disappearance, the search came to a tragic end. It was a warm, sunny day on April 30th, 2012, when a man went kayaking in Colo Creek early in the morning. He mounted his kayak and started making his way down the creek, enjoying the nice weather and the calm waters. As he approached an underpass, the man started smelling something foul. The odor was strong, so he knew that whatever it was had to be close. He looked around to try and find where the smell was coming from and spotted something by the bank that didn't look like it belonged there. As he rode his way over to it, he saw a swarm of flies surrounding what looked like a decomposing human body. The man noticed that the body had long hair and was in the same outfit that he'd seen on the mannequin. He immediately turned back and went straight home to call the police. Crime scene investigators were quickly sent to secure the scene and retrieve the body. As soon as the body was confirmed to be Allison's, the search was called off, and her missing persons case was officially changed to a murder investigation. Police were now on the hunt for a killer, and they knew exactly where to start looking for him. Allison's body was transported to a medical examiner. It was determined that the body laid undisturbed on the creek bank for 10 days before it was found, which allowed for crucial evidence to be preserved. Several plant samples were collected from her hair and clothing and were sent to a botanist to be analyzed. The botanist concluded that there were 6 plant species on the body that did not grow anywhere near the creek, which indicated that the body had been moved there from another location. Going off of a hunch, police collected plants from the Baden-Clay home to see if they matched the samples. Not only were all 6 species of plant found at the home, but the age and condition of the leaves found on Allison's body were almost identical to those collected from her property. Detectives shift their focus to the Baden-Clay family and start digging for answers. Over the following weeks, police presence at the family home became a common occurrence, and law enforcement was frequently seen walking out of the house with brown paper bags, which were assumed to contain evidence. What police eventually discovered would completely shatter the image of a picture-perfect family that was presented to the world. Investigators scoured all the computers in the house, as well as a diary that Allison had left behind. They quickly find out that Gerard and Allison's marriage was not going well at all, and was actually nearing its end. Allison blamed herself for her failing marriage, which led her to receive treatment and medication for depression, while Gerard turned to online dating. He signed up with at least 2 dating sites and was actively speaking to multiple women. His profile read, "Married but don't want to be, looking for some sex on the side." Detectives paid a visit to Gerard's office and spoke with employees at his company. Female employees reported that Gerard was inappropriate at times and was a little too touchy with them. One female employee said that Gerard asked her if she ever had a threesome. She immediately shut down the conversation and told him to never ask her inappropriate things like that again. But there was another female employee at Gerard's company who was more receptive to his advances and started having an affair with him. Her name was Toni McHugh. Toni began working for Gerard in 2008, and by August of that year, the two of them were dating. Their relationship was an open secret at the company, but Gerard managed to keep it hidden from his wife for years. But word about the affair eventually got out and reached one of Allison's friends. When Allison found out her husband had been cheating on her for at least 3 years, she was devastated. Gerard insisted it was just a fling and nothing serious. He promised Allison he'd stop seeing his mistress and that he'd work on repairing their relationship. Hoping to save their marriage and keep her family together, Allison got them into counseling and wrote down a list of things she needed her husband to do. Just 3 months later, however, Gerard rekindled his affair with Toni, and the two of them have been seeing each other ever since. Police bring in Toni McHugh for an interview and learn some more interesting details. McHugh tells detectives that she fell in love with Gerard and left her 4 children and her husband of 17 years to be with him. She says Gerard promised her he'd leave his wife multiple times and that they'd get married and start a new life together, but he never really got around to it. As soon as Allison found out about the affair, however, all of those promises went out the window. Gerard dumped her and fired her from his company. Then 2 months after that, he was suddenly back in Toni's life. He told her that he'd made the decision to leave his wife and promised her it would happen very soon. This happened at the same time he promised Allison he'd help her revive their marriage. McHugh says that on the night before Allison went missing, she found out that both she and Allison would be attending a real estate conference the next day. She says she was livid at the possibility of a confrontation with her. She had a heated phone call with Gerard and demanded that he tell his wife about their affair. According to McHugh, Gerard promised her that he would end his marriage that same night. As police dug deeper, the private life of Gerard Baden-Clay began to untangle. And with so much public interest in the case, startling revelations made their way into the press. People found out that Gerard's business hasn't been doing so well since the Brisbane floods took place, which happened 2 years earlier. Gerard's company hasn't recovered since and was on the brink of bankruptcy with over $1 million in debt. It just so happened that Allison had a life insurance policy that Gerard had recently bumped up to almost $1 million, and he called to claim the insurance payout the very same day that her body was found, before it was even officially confirmed to be hers. Police seized Allison's car and sent it to a forensics lab for testing. The lab found traces of Allison's blood in the trunk, as well as her blood smeared on the inside of the door with drips leading to the floorboard. Based on all the evidence, this is what police believe happened on the night that Allison Baden-Clay was murdered. With mounting problems in his marriage and a company on the verge of bankruptcy, Gerard decides to knock 2 birds with 1 stone and kill his wife to collect her life insurance payout. He thought that by murdering Allison, all his problems would be solved and that he could just start over. In the week prior to her murder, he called her insurance company to make sure her policy was in effect. On April 19th, Gerard receives a call from his mistress, complaining about having to see Allison at a conference the next day and how she didn't want there to be a scene. He promised her he'd end their marriage, and that's exactly what he did that very same night. It's believed that Gerard caught Allison by surprise in their bedroom late in the night and strangled her to death as she fought for her life, leaving behind marks on his face and his body. This could have taken upwards of 10 minutes. Once Allison stopped moving, Gerard grabbed her lifeless body by the feet and dragged it down the stairs, out of the house, and through the back patio, where plant material attached to her hair, and her skin was likely cut. He then loaded the body into the trunk of Allison's car, leaving behind traces of her blood in the process, and drove 9 miles out to Colo Creek, where he stopped the car in the middle of a bridge and threw the body over. Gerard then went home to take a shower, and a few hours later, he called police to report Allison missing. There was no smoking gun, but detectives felt that they had enough circumstantial evidence to build a solid case against Gerard. On June 13th, 2012, less than 2 months after Allison's murder, Gerard Baden-Clay was arrested and charged with interfering with a corpse and murder. His trial commenced on June 10th, 2014. He pleaded not guilty and denied having anything to do with the disappearance or the murder of his wife. Over the course of the next month, prosecutors presented the court with witness testimony and a long list of circumstantial evidence, as well as Allison's diary, which contained all the intimate details of their marital problems. Gerard took the stand in his own defense and claimed that there's no way he could have carried out the murder because he'd never leave his young daughter's home alone while discarding Allison's body. He also claimed that his 4-year relationship with Toni McHugh was nothing more than a side fling, and that he never intended on leaving his wife for her. On July 14, 2014, the case was handed to the jury to decide Gerard's fate. It took them 21 hours to arrive at a unanimous verdict. Gerard was found guilty of murdering his wife and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Gerard appealed his conviction, and just a year later, the Queensland Court of Appeal ruled that the Crown failed to establish beyond doubt that Gerard had intended to kill his wife, and overturned it. It was downgraded to manslaughter, which carries a maximum sentence of 15 years. This caused public outrage, and Allison's family expressed their disappointment in the justice system. However, before he could be resentenced, a unanimous judgment by the High Court of Australia ordered Gerard's original conviction to be reinstated, as well as his life sentence. Gerard Baden-Clay is currently housed in Woolston Correctional Centre in Queensland and won't be eligible for parole until 2029 at the age of 59.